guys are in the chat right now if my audio is good. And this is going to be a very different video that I typically do on this channel. If you are new, I typically talk about off-grid radio communication, and sometimes I'll have a tangent on something that is just related to sharing an experience, and that's what this is today. So I am working on a series of projects and doing quite a bit of research and development. And I've done a video on ADHD, on how I funnel that and use that as a superpower. And I also have developed over the last, now 40 years, a way of learning that suits my lifestyle. And it had a lot to do with a couple of people in my life and some of the schools I went to. And I just want to share that with you guys. So this morning I was sitting outside with coffee, or having coffee with the dogs, and I was reading doing some research, and I have a process by which I like to annotate things. And I kind of wanted to share that with you because I feel I was the last generation. I was born in 1981. I grew up pre-internet, was a latchkey kid, grew up, basically, I was babysat at the public library every day for quite some time until I started chasing girls. And it was just a great time to grow up and experience physical books in print, having to go and do research in person, going through the Dewey Decimal System and doing all of that work. So to this day, in 2025, even though I am embedded in the tech industry, I still write by hand notes and I annotate everything. So I just want to share with you this process and what I was going through this morning. So I am working on a project to make off-grid communication easier for the masses, not so much for the amateur radio community, but for people who want true off-grid communication that does not involve the cell network, does not involve satellites, does not involve the internet. And the only way to do that is with HF radio communication. And one of the challenges with HF radio communication is that it feels like there's a lot of voodoo, and there is, and it's subject to change, but there has been lots and lots of research going back many decades by the military, by the government, by the Voice of America on AM broadcast. And I saw that information was out there. And the way that I learn things is by going back to first principles. So let me show you what I was reading this morning. So first, one thing I like to do when I'm researching any topic, I like to go to the source. I don't go to YouTube. I don't even, going back 10 years ago, I did not like going online and reading somebody else's post or article on the subject. If I know I'm going to do it, I want to go to the source. So I want to research HF prediction with specific focus on something called VOACAP. And where I like to draw my research from is from the government and the military. Say what you will about them, but there is a lot of dollars that go into that. So it's kind of dying off doing this type of textual searches. So I put in the term VOACAP, and then a advanced term that may go away at some point in the future, especially with AI, called CITE: and I put either .mil or .gov, and I get a host of academic articles that are really well written on the subject. For the one that we're going to be looking at today and how I'm annotating and going through that process, I found this one right here: signal to noise ratio predictions using VOACAP. And it's available as a PDF document, which I will show you over here. And one of the first things that's easy to do is get intimidated with some of the literature out here. This is a scan, I think, from 1993, or actually looks like it's 2000, but it's 174 pages. So I know that there's value in researching this topic. I go to the source. Typically, for what I'm doing these days, I prefer to have it viewed through the lens of more the military and government versus the amateur radio space. And What I like to do is quickly skim. Let's see if I can even get to it here. Skim the table of contents, right? And typically I would do this in print form. And it just gives me a very good idea. Is this paper or is this book worth my time and effort? And really quickly, I can see that it's well structured, that it touches on a lot of the things that I want to understand. And then what I'll do is something called fast failing. And I will give a certain amount of time to quickly reading probably the first section and seeing if it's even worth my time. So I read the first page, and then as I was reading it, all of these alarm bells started firing around. Wow, this is information dense, and by that I mean there's a lot of information here. So this is the technique that I really want to show you. So at this point, after I read it, realized there was value, I realized there was a lot here to unpack. Really quickly skimmed it, and now I want to go and read it deeply. And this was, I have to really give a big shout out to two people in my life that introduced me to this style of note taking. I don't even know if it has a name, and apologies for the poor quality here. But my uncle, who passed away a few years ago and was really influential in everything I've done in my life, from my love for books, my love for self learning, education, hiking, trail running, all of that stuff. Also influenced where I'm going these days in terms of being what I'm calling a techno anarchist and neo Luddite, because of his time that he spent in a Cuban prison for 18 months when he was 18, fighting against the Castro regime and handing out anti-communist propaganda. Um, Anyways, he always, for every single uh, birthday from when I was a kid, all kinds of books, and it was always age appropriate. But one thing he always did, and it always struck me, is he always would annotate and write notes to himself, underline passages. Frequently, there would be stacks of post-it notes there, and it was questions to himself, ideas for further conversation. And this is why I absolutely love the idea, and still to this day prefer books like this, because you have engagement one-on-one with it, and I can pull these things out. So he was really influential. And then the other one was Mrs. Mobley, who was my, I want to say, fifth grade and eighth grade teacher. I got her twice, and she taught me the skills I'm going to show you on how I do note taking on paper. But I have about 100 of these Moleskine notebooks covering everything that I have learned in my adult life, and even some of college. And they all are essentially these personal compendiums, and it can be anything from something that looks like standard brainstorming. This one in particular, again, I'm pretty sure the IP is fine, was when I was building a genomic search engine for a biotech company back in 2010. I've got another volume of how I built a cannabis driven search engine back in 2016 through 2020. And it's a amazing dialogue to have with yourself on learning something new, because you can take something that someone else has written, you can do your brain dumps, you can ask questions, answer it at your leisure, and they're just fun to go back. In fact, I almost didn't do this video because I kind of wanted to pour over kind of the work that I've done over the last 20 or so years. So let's get back to kind of this bit here. So I printed out the first page that I wanted to read of that VOACAP manual, and I read very slowly. I read for absorption, and one of the things that I do is a combination of using a highlighter, but only to highlight things that allow me to construct sentences very quickly. So I'm just going to read to you the first paragraph, but only in yellow. Signal to noise ratio defines the grade of service. It equates to speech, intelligibility, character, and bit error rate. So at a glance, I can now look at that whole first paragraph very quickly. I don't have to reread it. It just jumps out at me. So there is this very delicate balance where I just highlight the key words, but I do it in such a way that it allows me to, or my brain to really quickly construct and fill in the articles and the prepositions and just give me uh, the quick sentences. So going on to the second paragraph, DEF, that's my shorthand for definition. It means that there's something I want to commit to memory. And then there's this thing called the Friss transmission equation. And again, I have condensed what that is in terms of a quick highlighting. So it is the power at the receiver related to power delivered to the transmitter, right? There's a lot more that goes into it, but at a glance, I have all of those key terms. Um, I also want to give myself some admonitions. Typically, I would also put a check here called like warning when there are callouts like this: prediction accuracy. User input has to be correct. So for me, you'll see them in print too. They're like info, warning, note. Typically, I would put something there because this is important. The other thing I like to do when I'm going to zoom in here even more. Whoops. Let's see. That I like to do is there are a couple of applications here that I have no experience with. One is called VOA Area and the other one's called HVANT. So I have a question to myself. Is there a Linux port? Typically this runs on Windows, so it's something I want to answer for myself. And when I have the answer for it, I'm going to go in and actually add an annotation. And sometimes I'll use a period as the answer or just draw another arrow. And then I also leave to-dos. So this is to-do Windows install, and it's 2 checkboxes that I'll actually fill in. And I have a to-do to install the HF antenna program and the VOA area. And then I've got another thing that, as I was doing that, it jogged my memory. So there's a transition from these 2 to-dos to another action that I want to perform. And I have a really great community over on the Buy Me a Coffee side. And I have to give a shout out to Padre, who does something called the TTP Nerd Hours on the member Discord. And he knows all of the HS stuff cold. He really knows the science. He knows about antenna modeling. He even last year, or maybe 2 years ago, took the antennas that I designed with Tim N9 SAB, and he modeled them for me. And I have been busy with the day job, and now it's time for me to re-engage him and see where he was with that work. So it's just a reminder for me to, okay, now let's go ahead and let's bootstrap our understanding of the HF modeling, specifically with the antennas, contact Padre. So again, this is non-standard. This is all the stuff that Mrs. Mobley taught me in the 5th grade and the 8th grade that I have carried with me in every aspect of life. I do this, whether it's learning about maintenance on the RV, radio theory, my day-to-day job. I mean, I have, like I said, an entire library of the last 22 years of professional work from every single client. So moving on here. There's a section here that talks about rules of thumb. The author thought it was important, so they quoted it. So I made a note to myself to jump here next. So I'm going to go back to the table of contents, and I'm going to take a look at that section. And what that'll give me is some context. So rather than reading through everything and then finding out what the rules of thumb are, it's kind of like having a little bit of spoiler for yourself. And if I know what the rules of thumb are, as I'm reading and unpacking this 170-page manual over the next 3 months, I'll have that in the back of my mind, and I can make those relationships, and I can also go in and do that style of annotation. So long story short, guys, I just wanted to share with you this process. One of the things that I like to do is I have found out over the years that writing with a pen, especially a permanent one, is the way to go. I really like these precise V5s if you want to write kind of tiny and maximize all of your to-dos. For example, for today's raw notes for this little video here, I wrote them all over the place. But I would say don't be afraid to write in your books. In fact, there's a funny story. I was on disciplinary probation pretty much all through high school. And I wrote in all the books that I bought from the high school that I went to. And then at the end of the year, they wanted us to return the books that we paid for. And I was questioned by Father Travers on why all my books were dog eared, had paper clips in them, had post-it notes, had highlighters in them, and black permanent pen all the way through. So they tried to make me pay for the book again. I said, absolutely not. In fact, I'm keeping my book. And I did that with all the books there. I finally got kicked out of that school and had to go to finish out my junior and senior year in public school. But anyways, the point of all this was it was another moment that I wanted to connect with you guys and share with you my process, because the radio direction finding series I'm working on, the Kraken SDR, all of the work goes through this cycle of I have an idea, I find that it has value, I try to go to the source of truth and experience it for myself. I've got a vetting criteria that I use where I skim the table of contents. Then I go and quickly fast fail in a time box fashion, reading the first few pages and see if, yeah, this looks like it's going to be quality. And then I go back, print it out, or buy the book in print, and then start annotating the heck out of it. And then as I annotate those, I go and start creating what I call a personal compendium. So I'm working on now a vocab compendium that's based on my digestion of this 177 page manual. But then also, as I go through all of the development and go into the field and experiment the stuff, it's going to have that. So it's an encyclopedia of knowledge, and that's why I'm calling it a personal compendium, because it's my point of view. It's not for everybody. I've always been in awe of people that I used to call it being smarter than me, because I have no working memory and I struggle with difficult concepts all the time. And this is the only way that I know how to learn. And if there's just one person out there that is watching this video that can use this technique that I've developed and kind of honed in over, like I said, 40 years, that's all I wanted to get out here today. So I don't want it to be longer than it needs to. There is one thing I am going to drop it in the chat. I have a big announcement coming. Oh, did I kill it? Never mind. I was going to drop a link to the Precise Pen here. No big deal. But I've got a big announcement coming next week that is going to change things for the Tech Prepper and all of the things I do for the good. It's going to give me lots and lots of times to focus on me reimagining radio for off-grid communication. But with that said, guys, I don't have a cup of coffee. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your Saturday. And that's all I want to say. So be strong, be safe, and be prepared. And I just need to figure out how to kill the stream.